Meaning to say that they have a defined presence to start from. No. Not that their definitions come as a result of them being mislavish in the kelim. Rather, they mislavish in the kelim because they have a defined presence. And thus, when we go up further and we say, where are they, how they originate from the nefesh? The nefesh has no defined presence. So we say that their origination from the nefesh is in a different manner than what we would normally project. That this is a ha'ora of the nefesh. And we say logically it cannot be a ha'ora of the nefesh, because ha'ora is by definition lifi eifon ha'etzem. It carries the quality and the presence and the principle of the etzem. And since the etzem is blig wool.
Rabbi Paltiel?
Yes, sir.
I just want to stop and ask you a question about terminology, because in this discussion I haven't really understood whether we're using the term ha'ara in a different way than we sometimes do. Because sometimes we say that a ha'ara is like a subset of the inyan, or a functional aspect, as opposed to the etzem inyan.
Right.
Are we using it in the same way here?
Yes.
But here it sounds as though when we say the ha'ara of the etzem, the ha'ara of the nefesh is kamei ha-nefesh atzmai.
No, it doesn't say that. It said kifi lifi eifon ha'etzem.
And what does that mean?
All right. Well, that means. Let me just remind you how we explained it in the first time. I thought it was very, very clear.
Okay.
We took as our example for that the Oyer HaShemesh, the sunlight. The sunlight emanates from the shemesh, from the sun, not by being manufactured as we always explain. It comes from the sun because the sun is an etzem behiri. The sun is light in its very essence. Just like the nefesh. The nefesh doesn't manufacture life. The nefesh is life. It's be'etzem life. And that's why its ha'ora is machaya. So is the sun. The sun is what's called etzem behiri. As we explained this many times, that the sun, the light that the sun carries and presents to us is a light, akin, it is representative of the light that was created b'sheishes me'breishes, the first day of creation. The first day of creation there was no sun, and there was a light. That light was pure light, not a deflected light, and its illuminating capability is not by deflection, but by removing darkness, by completely eliminating darkness per se. And a similar thing when say the sun. When the sun illuminates the world, it brings daylight. So we always give this very simple point. A manufactured light, candlelight, flashlight, any light that is created as light, has a a definable function, and it is correct to say that what is light? It makes you able to see objects. That is light. And as a matter of fact, the scientific definition of sight, of how we see, is that light hits an object and is deflected from the object, and the deflected light hits your eye, and this is how you see. It has a limited function of making you able to see objects. Sunlight has a different method completely. Sunlight creates day. And everybody understands that you can't define day by saying, oh, it's daylight, so you could see this object. It's totally out of kilter to say that. Because daylight does not create the ability to see an object. Daylight eliminates the inability to see, because it completely eliminates darkness. As we always point out, light from the sun's perspective, light in the sun, is as basic, please try to understand this, as darkness to us. The sun is etzem behiri, the world is etzem dark. Light to the sun is is on the same level of reality, of fundamental reality, as darkness or yes. Therefore, this is called etzem behiri. So this etzem behiri, when that gives off a ha'ora, and it illuminates the world, this ha'ora has a quality of etzem behirus, not a light that forces itself, that makes you able to see an object. It eliminates darkness, even as a ha'ora that comes into the world. It simply eliminates darkness. And therefore, by day, the correct way to say is not that you're able to see an object, it's a there's no darkness. This is the effect of the sun. So here we have a clear demonstration of this principle. The sun is an etzem behiri. The ha'or of the sun has a similar quality as the etzem. It also brings to the world an essence, a sense of etzem behiris, that the world is illuminated on the fundamental level. Even though it is not fundamental, it is there because there is light coming to it. But the light has that effect; it eliminates darkness completely on the ha'ora level rather than on etzem level. This is the meaning of these words. Ha'ora, harei chol ha'ori harei hi lifi oifon ha'etzem. The ha'ora is lifi oifon ha'etzem. Since the ha'or is lifi eifon ha'etzem, therefore, just as etzem has no definitive presence, boundaries, ha'or also has no boundaries. Therefore, the koiches that are bounded, and they're limited, the koiches cannot be explained and viewed as a ha'ora of the nefesh, because then the koiches would also be without limit. And the koiches are essentially, in essence, limited. Limited means they have a definitive presence. What does each koich stand for? Chochmah stands for chochmah, and chesed stands for chesed. Each koich has boundaries. It can be clearly defined what it stands for. Therefore, since the koiches come from the nefesh, and it cannot be so that they come from the nefesh per se as a ha'or of the nefesh. So we come to the understanding that the koiches are actually contained in the nefesh. They don't come from the nefesh directly, they contained in the nefesh. How do they come into the nefesh? That's a separate thing. This is what we're trying to go deeper and understand this.
They don't come from the nefesh, they're contained in the nefesh.
Right, kollel b'nefesh. This is different between the two terms. A nefesh noisei koiches and a nefesh kollel koiches.
The koiches, the way they are, as the nefesh is noisei them, this is like a ha'ara, or...
This is like a ha'ara of the nefesh.
This is like a ha'ara.
Right.
But
And they have a nefesh quality.
They're unbounded.
They're unbounded.
But they don't ever come out that way.
They do come out like this, but they don't come out in kelim.
They don't come out in kelim. Okay? Yeah, I'm not going to push that.
We will get to that also. Even though this morning we discussed this. This morning we took the koyach hamachshava, thought, and we spoke of it at two distinct levels. There's a principle, as we all been learned already, machshava musheitat stomach. There's a constant fluttering of machshava in the person's brain. Constant. Tomit. Constant, absolutely constant. And then there is machshava, what's called machshava's haseichel, which is a definable machshava that is concentrated and it's aware of what it's thinking about. And there's an organization to that thought. That thought ultimately results in some kind of a clarity in machshava, to the point where it brings it down to the point where it can be expressed in words, and then ultimately it goes down to machshava dibur mais, to mais, and machshava, and that ultimately has the effect of creating midas and so forth.
Being midas?
Right, that's right. That seichel that goes through the machshava results ultimately in midas and in action. But that's a different machshava. That's not the level of machshava that is a ha'ora of the nefesh. That is machshava that is a concerted machshava that is premeditated. Let me think this through. That's not the machshava that the stomach. This machshava has no beginning, and has no middle, has no end. It's a ha'ora of the nefesh. It's a constant life force flowing from the nefesh. Thank you very much. Okay. So this is the principle, like you said, that ha'ora is ha'ora of the etzem is lefi eifon ha'etzem. It's a ha'ora only. It's a functional element of them, but it's lefi eifon ha'etzem. Lefi eifon ha'etzem means it brings an atzmius element to the ha'ora level. Like we said in the case of light, it does not illuminate. It eliminates darkness. It brings light to the world on a fundamental level. Okay. Okay, so coming back to the issue at hand here, we are talking about koiches that are definitive koiches. not like the Yetzer. These koiches also come from the nefesh. How is it that they come from the nefesh and the nefesh is really without any limit?
Hi.
Hi, come in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, please come in.
Hello.
Oh, hi. Please take yourselves upstairs. And, okay, as you go upstairs, yeah, the last room,
Okay.
the porch room. Thank you.
Pamphlet.
On the last room on the right.
Good. Guys, right?
Hmm? So we say that somehow we have to try to understand this. That these koiches are not emanating from the nefesh itself, but nefesh contains them. A nefesh kollel es ala koiches. So for the time being, when we say kolleles sounds like they're just contained there. They're placed there as entities who are not part of their hosting domain, because their hosting domain is b'li gvul. And then the nefesh is kollel dis koiches. So we brought in another term to this, and we said that indeed there is an element of koiches that are emanations of the nefesh, and those koiches are called the nefesh noise koiches, not the nefesh kollel koiches, nefesh noise koiches. Noise means it bears koiches in itself. It is part and parcel of the nefesh.
Notice it like carries?
Like carrying, like what carries in and itself, not carries because it was burdened with it. It is part of its very essence that noises is koiches. This is the pshat noise and nefesh noise koiches. Those koiches are nefesh noises koiches, are not koiches, not definitive koiches, not koiches are in Islamish in Keli, in a goof. Because to be mislabish in the goof, you have the koiches have to be koiches pnimim, have to be predefined. Those nefesh noises koiches are not predefined. They're part and parcel of the nefesh. They like the nefesh itself. Like we gave the example of the machshav mishetetz stomach. One is thinking all the time. What is he thinking about? There is no content, definitive content of that thought. If there's no content of thought, how come he's thinking? The koyach pnimi, there is no way he can think without thinking about something. But this koyach, which is koyach b'li gvul, which is representing akin to the nefesh itself, yes, he can be thinking without having a content, without having a subject.
But in the Yemen, which I'm familiar with the Machshav Mishetet is coming from, it seems to imply there that because Machshav Mishetet is Tamid, a person has to have positive content, because if not, the default is that he will have negative content, which kind of implies that a person must make sure that he's occupied in positive Machshava, because of the principle of Machshav Mishetet is Tamid. If it's not positive, the default is that it's not positive, which means that there's a content either way.
No, it doesn't mean that. It means that then it is free to be attracted to anything. And in that way, you can be metamid in nefesh because you can be. You're welcome. Anything that comes your way will engage in machshava.
Ah.
So this is what he's saying. That this, the nefesh, that is the nefesh itself, and that is not subdivided in the koiches. It's one reality. But that which the nefesh is kollel koiches, this is not atzmut hanefesh. This is not the atzmut nefesh. What is it? How does it come to the nefesh if it's not atzmut nefesh? That we have tried to give us a little bit of a handle on that, and we will still come back to this. But this is one thing. It's not the etzem nefesh, atzmut nefesh.
But at the level where it's nesa keiches v'shamhim b'chinas achdus mamish, they're level of hara.
Yes, those cases, as when they come out, they're like ha'or of the nefesh. And there it is, so to speak. I hate to say that it's ha'or nefesh because those cases are in fact undefined.
Why do we say that they're undefined? Machshava Mushtetas Tamid is not undefined.
It is.
Well, it's not feeling. It's machshava.
Right, but the thought itself is a constant thought. It does not speak of its content.
Right.
It's just awareness, as we said. It's a very difficult thing to pin down, but that is a reality. As I said, if there is a moment, there is a moment where there is no machshava, then there is no life coming into the group. This machshava, this is a part of the nefesh, of the ability of the nefesh, the koiches are nefesh, the nefesh noises koiches. And that indeed defines nefesh. If nefesh should be lacking, because it's this morning, this koyach, then the nefesh is lacking the whole unit of nefesh can be mechayah the guf, mechayah, giving chayas.
So they're defined on the one hand that they're clearly kefes, but they're not defined enough to be functional yet. They can't actually.
They are clearly koiches, but not independently identifiable. They're clearly koiches as part of the nefesh. Nefesh noises koiches. Okay. I would like that we should feel comfortable with all this as we go along. So I'm going to go more into this, so we should have a little bit of a handle. The union of an etzem is in the world. We have to use, so to speak, something that in worldly context, relative to other things, it's an etzem. There's no atzmi in the world. You say a human being is an atzmi, but it's not an atzmi in the real sense of the word. Nevertheless, he's an atzmi in the sense that his presence in the world has an essential significance, not just a functional significance. A similar thing we say, Odom shein a bias, ain't a Odom, a person. Odom does not have a bias, is not an Odom, which means a bias has an essential significance to the human being. It's essential value, essential meaning. And we always explain a bias is not to be identified from its functional provision, that it provides protection against the elements of conflict and so on. You know where to sit and where to put the things. A bias is an essential thing for the human being. A place in the world and reality. He defines the reality of the human being because, and as the Big Mother says, without that he is lacking reality. He's Ein Yodel. Now, a house by definition, a house will be ultimately divided into rooms, and each room will ultimately be divided, be populated with different pieces of furniture. That is not misusing the house, that is how you use the house. But we are saying that the furnishings and all the uses, this is not the essence, the etzem of a house. This is the pnimis, this is the functional element of the house. This is how you take the house and identify it under certain functional levels. But the essence of the house is undefinable. To the extent, a person who does not have a bed is tired, doesn't have a place to sleep. So you can go into a hotel and sleep. It's not a human being, because he's a human being. But Odom Shein LeBayis, Ein Odom. It's a completely different level of identification. So now this house will definitely eventually be furnished.
Disconnected.
You ran out of power.
I'll give mine.
Or go to speakerphone, whichever is easier for you.
Well, I can go to speakerphone. I don't know if it's going to be good enough.
Okay, I'll bring yours. Where is
It's right here on the. So we always point out an interesting thing, that you walk into a house, and the house is subdivided into rooms. You immediately sense this is a living room, this is a dining room, this is a bedroom. Although they have not yet been so furnished or anything. That's how it's suited. And then in the dining room itself, there is all kinds of possibilities how you're going to set it up. This setup that you perceive in the dining room itself, this is like, it's part and parcel of the dining room. It's not like something has been added to it. When you put a piece of furniture, and you see there's a piece of furniture there. And they can't put another piece of furniture in the same place. But prior to that, it essentially calls for a table. But there is no table. It calls for chairs, there are no chairs. This is like, why is it called for it? Because this room seems to be so well suited for setting up a table and chairs that it's as if it's there already, by its very design. This we could use as a muscle to this week. HaNefesh Noises Kleiches. This is because the nefesh in itself is suited for that. It's really a much higher level, much more significant. But nevertheless, it gives us a sense of what does it mean. There are noises koiches without there being any koiches. All right. The more correct, I didn't want to go, the more correct way of relating noises koiches is not when the rooms are already subdivided, but when you have a house. A house conceptually has rooms, conceptually has furnishings. There is not even a place for it yet. Because that's what a house is. And then noises like koiches. If it's not clear, we can make. Well, I think that should be sufficient. That's mine. So this is what we're saying. All right.
Before you have the physical structure, you're saying?
Huh?
Before you have the physical house.
Before you have any structure, anything that identifies with the keli. Okay, let me bring before we run on here. 1 second, please.
Before it identifies.
These koiches are called kollel benefesh. Incorporated, not noise, but incorporated. Incorporated means that they are separate things incorporated in nefesh. Noises koiches. Noises means that it is part of the essence itself that carries it, not incorporated therein. Now, we go to the next stage. If you thought before that it was challenging, okay, let's brace ourselves now. Umnum, 2 lines from the bottom. Umnum. However, it is also true that hakoiches k'moi shehein klulim benefesh. These koiches, at the stage where they are klulim benefesh, only incorporated in the nefesh, harei heim gamkein b'bchinas bli gvul. At that stage, the koiches are also b'bchinas bli gvul, also without boundaries, without limit. Even though they're only, we call it kollel benefesh, not noise koiches, but still they are also b'bchinas bli gvul. They have an aspect of bli gvul. Ve'einam b'mtzius koiches klal, and thus, in truth, they are not at the stage of being a metzius, a presence of koiches at all. Ukyodua, and as is known, the koyach ha-seichel ha-hiyuli ho-atzmi, that the seichel, what's called the seichel ha-hiyuli, which we already encountered before, ho-atzmi, the essence of koyach ha-seichel, which is only seichel hiyuli. Hiyuli means the prior to being defined as seichel, ha-kollel be'etzem ha-nefesh, that is kollel, that is incorporated in the etzem ha-nefesh. Einoi b'bchina sichli klal, is not Bibchinas is not in that category, is not to be identified, does not have a sichli definition. V'chein b'sh'ari koiches. The same is true in the other koiches. So this would appear that we have now just now contradicted completely what we just finished saying. That there is koiches in the nefesh. Are we saying no? That at that stage when they're nichlal in the kollel of the nefesh, it's not koiches at all. It's not they're blikvu, and they now don't have a seichel. Is not does not have a seichel definition. Ach ha'roson, but the ha'orah of the koiches, shenim shachli hislabesh bi'avore ha'guv, that ultimately is drawn and is mislabesh in the ivorim, in the goof, in the body. Harei zeh bo b'bchinas tzimtzum. That comes forth in a tzimtzum manner. She'anefesh mitzamtzim es atzmoi. That the nefesh contracts itself, limits itself, defines itself. Bigdei liyislabesh beivore haguf, in order to imbue itself in the limbs of the body, liyois bebchinas chayas pnimi, in order to be and to provide to the goof an element that's called chayas pnimi, an internalized chayas. As we discussed before, what chayas pnimi means, that the evorim actually embrace the koyach. Ve'ali deizeh. And then, as a result of this tzimtzum, that the nefesh is misamtzim itself, in order to be imbued, to allow it to be imbued in the evorim haguf, heim boim b'hagbola. Through, as a result of this tzimtzum, the koiches come to the point of being mugbal, of being defined and limited, and they're so limited ad sheheim be'erech, to the point that they become be'erech, in proximity, that it can be viewed from the point of the koiches, that they should be be'erech, they should be able to relate and to compare themselves to bechinas ruchni shebe'evorim, to the ruchnius aspect of the evorim, liyes nitfas bohem, that the koyach should be nitfas, should be grasped in the ruchnius of the evorim. This is what we said a while ago, that the gashmi, so to speak, of the ruchni is able to relate to the ruchni of the gashmi.
You open to a question?
Yeah, but then let me just reiterate what we just now said.
Okay.
Want to plug this in?
Oh.
Okay. So what we have here is that the koiches that are incorporated, I'm saying kluli benefesh. It is as a result of the tzimtzum hanefesh, when the nefesh is misamtzim in order to relate to the guf. As a result of this tzimtzum, these koiches can come to a point of being fully defined, to the point where they can be a similarity between these koiches and the Eva and the Evoni, in which they are going to be imbued. Okay, Baruch.
I'm trying to understand. It seems as though these koiches that are kollel, so we said that they're also, as long as they're in the nefesh, they're bli gevul. But they are sort of subject to becoming mitzamtzim and the gevul, as they come out to become mislavish and kalim.
Right.
So is this what really sort of distinguishes them from the koiches that are noisei by the nefesh, noisei etz nefesh? In other words, those koiches that are at the level of noisei aren't subject to tzimtzum regardless.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a primary distinction between these two
right.
ways that the koiches exist within the nefesh.
Right.
Is that true?
That's true. Noisei, a koich at noisei, the nefesh noisei koiches, the koich will always retain the nefesh quality.
Right.
It's a ha'ara the nefesh.
Are we talking here, when we describe these two kinds of koich, as noisei or kollel, is it actually that they're different entities, or they're the same thing at different levels?
All right, we'll take up this question when we have something to go by.
Okay. Thank you.
The one thing that is surfacing right now, we say that the ha'ara retains the quality of the etzem, no matter where it is. These koiches, after the tzimtzum, become eligible to be established in the Evore Haguf, and they can relate to the Ruchnis Shebegashmis. To put it in our terminology, the koiches that are kollel in the nefesh, even though they're also not, as we said, it's also bli gevul, they're not defined, they're not even seichel yet, but ultimately they relate to the principle of the koyach. The koiches that are that nefesh noises koiches always look back to the nefesh rather than to the koyach element. The koiches that are kollel ben nefesh, they identify themselves as they go through with this koyach. Except, like I said, the koyach ha-chochma is bli gvul chochma, but still it's inyan chochma. Whereas the nefesh noises koiches, the koiches identify themselves with the nefesh, not with the koich, not with koiches. But here, because it is the koiches are kollel, which means they identify themselves with the koiches. This is why when there is a tzimtzum in the nefesh and the koiches come forward, can be identified, then they actually have a definitive presence as a koich. Because in essence, they identify themselves with koyach rather than a nefesh. All right. To put this in terms of our Mesholim, let's go back to the Odom Shel Beis, the house. I think that the house, this would be the clearest way of focusing in on this thing. Now we said many times, what does it mean in Odom Shel Beis in Odom? I just said, what's so imperative about the house? It's not a house, as we said many times. The imperative thing of the house is that Odom has a primary presence in the world, not a secondary. He's not a visitor in the world. He has a primary presence. Like we always illustrate, what is a primary presence? Primary presence is you come to a wedding and there is room for everybody. There's a distinct difference between the person who is invited to the wedding and one who is not invited to the wedding. And a human being senses is different. Because he has this sense of primary presence. Yeah, I'm also there. Nobody throws me out. What I have is the food. I don't have the real relationship to what's going on. The human being in the world, his presence in the world, is as an invited presence. He's not just happens to be here. Every animal doesn't have that presence. He happens to be here. An animal is hungry, so he has to have food. He doesn't have a primary and essential presence. A human being does. Because he has that essential sense. Therefore, Odom Shel Beis, Beis, he doesn't have an essential presence, a place in the world. This is my place. He doesn't have he's lacking the human definition. There is not a place in the world that this is mine. He's lacking okay. If we elaborate on this, this is I'm an invited guest. This is my Ayin. This is my Ayin does not only mean I'm an invited guest and I'm allowed to sit wherever I want. Invited guest means that this place is going to be accommodating to me. If I was invited. So I'm gonna present with the place. I'm going to be served. I'm invited. It's going to be accommodating all my needs, all everything that I appreciate in being at a wedding. That's meant an invited guest. If I'm not invited, I can also have food, but I'm going to go to the smorgasbord. I'm not going to be served at my seat. Take for example. So this essential presence of the human being in the world, said Odom Shel Beis in Odom. Yes, there is a place itself. There's a place, essential place itself. But then the human being does not only represent a place. He has all kinds of functions. Functional in like the Rambam says, that based on the halacha, that a person who is involved in chokhmah, involved in learning, and if you eliminate that from him, then you take his life away. What's the matter?
What's that bathroom?
What? The bathroom?
Upstairs.
Go upstairs.
Look for a door without a mezuzah.
On your left, as you turn around on your left. So, having a home for a human being does not mean only, it means a place. But a place for what? A place for his being and a place for all of his, everything that defines his presence. Defining his presence includes a table and a chair. As we said many times. A human being cannot function without a table and a chair. This is what identifies his stature, that he has a table in front of him, and a chair, and whatever else that comes with it. In other words, yes, the essence is Beis, but that Beis already represents all the various other functions, not just his presence, all other functions that a human being represents for. Because every one of these functions is a real function of the human being that defines a human being.
What is the point here? That he's invited, and that affects him. That's an essential relationship plus a whole array of details.
I'm saying, an essential relationship automatically includes the array of details of everything that is accommodating to the human being. If you give a person food on the floor, have you served him food? Can he eat from the floor? He can't eat from the floor. He can't eat standing up. He can't eat walking around. So this entire array of the details that define a person's functions are included in the essential principle that he has an essential presence.
I'm sorry, I missed this last point. This is what?
They're all defining the essential reality of the human being.
Each individually is even really defining the essential reality of human being.
Right. So let's take the idea, the principle of eating at a table in comfort.
Are we talking about kollel nefesh or no?
1 second.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. There are two distinct aspects of this. One aspect is, the Gemara says, "Oichel b'shuk pema lekelev." That if a human being is to eat from the floor or walking around in a market, not in a proper setting, in a definitive place, in a proper human setting, he's doing lekelev. He's not a human being. He was likened to a killer. In other words, this is part and parcel definition of the machine Beis in the order. Even though Oine Beis is more encompassing, but it encompasses all of these things that would infringe on his definition of being a human being. Which is one aspect. Then there is another aspect. The fact is, he has to eat. And he has to eat in a proper way, and proper food. This Indian that he has to eat proper food in a proper way. In other words, he has to have a fork and a knife in order to eat. There are two distinct aspects in this. There is the comfort element and there is the human element. The human element, this is like the Indian is that's kollel be'atzim. Not definable individually. This is like the ha'ara of the etzim of the person. It's the ha'ara of the principle Adam shein lebayis and Adam.
Don't we say this is like the koiches that are noisei be'etzim?
So I'm saying this Indian, that ein Adam ein shein lebayis and Adam. On Eichel B'Shuk Neimel Keleb, all of these inyonim that reflect immediately to his being, to his human stature, is in this category of noisy koiches. Then there is another aspect in this koiches. It's poshet not comfortable to eat without a knife and a fork. Practically speaking. That's on a different level. It doesn't infringe upon his being a human being. It's a yin that he is able to eat in a neat way and so forth, in a comfortable way, in an efficient way. This is koiches. Do we see the difference?
I can't, and I don't know how shaykh it is to compare something outside of the parentheses or something inside of the parentheses, but at this point I'm completely confused now the distinction between the keifes klulim shem gam kem b'chinas split rule and the keifes as they're in nesa b'nefesh as they are in a state of bleak.
Fine. Watch it. So this you'll have to have a little patience. Yes, indeed. But the concept, the difference between klulim and noisi, in the fact that klulim refers to the koyach per se, and noisim refers to the nefesh that carries it. And we gave a demonstration from this human element. There are certain things that is reflective of the human being, certain things that are part of his functioning element, which is not reflective of it. They're similar koiches, but they're in a different category. Your question is a very valid question, and this is a thing that we are struggling, and we'll come to it. In what way is it contained in the nefesh if it is not part of the nefesh? And if it is bli gvul, so if it's bli gvul, and yet you say it's only contained in the nefesh, it would be part of the nefesh.
But he has to eat with a knife and a fork.
Huh?
But he has to eat with a knife and a fork.
Well, it depends. If he has to eat it, then that's part of noisy
That's
koiches.
part of it. But if you're saying if he's uncomfortable while eating, that doesn't.
Then that's something else for me.
It's possible to still be a human being and be uncomfortable while eating.
Right.
What is the Indian, for example, that you often talk about of sitting down to eat? This is also noisei, like noisei.
Right. This is like getting from noisy koiches.
Right. A lot of people didn't figure this out. I'm sorry, it's funny.
Remember, there's so much in here. You see, we're just scratching the surface. But we said the other day, remember the story, we always make the story from the Rashab, that the goy said he eats so that he would live. He eats so that he would live. So we pointed out that for a goy to say that he eats so that he would live is quite a fine intellectual recognition. Because normally, what would a goy say? Why does he eat?
I'm hungry.
He eats because he's hungry. To sense this human insight. He eats because he's focused on living, not on eliminating discomfort of hunger. This is a positive intellectual recognition. So if one eats because he is hungry, this is like the kollel in the nefesh. If one eats because he needs to live, this is part and parcel of the nefesh itself, of the person. This is like noises hakoiches. Where does he get this kind of an idea? It's not part of the hakoich. Eating is not, by per se, defined as giving you life. Eating is defined by eliminating your hunger. This is a different kind of eating. It's a different kind of definition. It's a definition that comes from the nefesh itself.
In the context of that muscle, where's the bleak rule in eating because you're hungry? Because there still has to be that quality of koyach.
Yeah, I don't want to.
How long do we have for bleak rule? How much time do we have for bleak rule?
Okay, we don't have the time, but you know what? Let's be tomorrow, and you have to have some kind of a say that. Okay, this is the case. This is the difficulty.
What is the difficulty? Can you say that and hear what Noah said?
Speak up.
If we've identified which part is Nesa Keiches, that it's really one thing with the soul. So now the secondary level where a person eats to be hungry or eats because he's hungry, according to the Maimer, there still has to be some quality of bleak vul in that level.
In essence, on the essential level, there has to be a bleak book. So I can answer it in 2 words, but I don't want, because I want to be able to elaborate. Otherwise,
Really in 2 words, or is it?
yeah, really in 2 words. But that's not the point. Okay.
But that doesn't
We
say
know to start with, as we said many times, this is a step by step, a bit by bit process. In Mitzvah Hashem, we'll get to it. Again, maybe.